Welcome to the VET S.O.S Veteran Educational Resources Spotlight. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. Today, we're sitting down with Eric Kready, retired U.S. Army military police officer who now makes a career in corporate security. Kready is an active member of ASIS International and currently serves as the director of the ASIS International Professional Certification Board. He is an active public speaker and author dedicated to assisting military and law enforcement professionals effectively navigate their career transition to the private sector. Kready spearheads ASIS International's Operation Career Change, providing free and valuable career transition resources for any military or first responder seeking a new chapter in private sector security. How you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing well, Shawn. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh man, so glad you could join us today. It's ASIS is an organization I've been a part of. As a continuity professional, just great organization doing great things and just such a wealth of information. So I'm excited to jump into this program. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about your transition, man. Tell us how your transition out of the military went.
Sure. Yeah, it's sort of hard to remember because it was already 13 years ago, but some things definitely stick in my mind. There was so many times of realizing I wish I would have known that, or I wish I would have had this resource. Gosh, if I knew that before I was going into the transition phase, things would have been better and easier and faster and more efficient and likely more successful. But that's kind of what the reason is for me assisting military law enforcement folks in their transitions so that they can learn from things that I learned and not make those same mistakes and have those struggles. And that ultimately is what spurred Operation Career Change, the ASIS international program that you're referring to. So it's all about giving back and helping our heroes have a better, more successful journey than the rest of us.
Outstanding. Yeah, no, the transition can be tough, right? So, every one of us goes through something different and trying to find our way. And glad you did, and glad you found a way to also continue to give back to our community. So let's jump into ASIS. Tell us what ASIS International is, and then we'll jump into Operation Career Change and find out what's out there for our veteran community.
Sure. Yeah. So ASIS International is a 75-year-old organization. It's the oldest and largest society, a professional organization for security practitioners. And if you think about, sometimes you see commercials on TV for SHRM, that's the enormous Society for Human Resources Professionals, and you have the National Education Association for teachers. Most professions have a professional society. ASIS International is that society for security practitioners, and it focuses heavily on the physical side. There's a little bit of cyber and IT security components to it, but it's mostly on the physical side of things. Again, I mentioned it's the oldest and largest. It's 75 years old. It spans across the globe. There's almost 35,000 members,
Wow.
excuse me, in ASIS International. Focuses heavily on continuing education because, as we know, the world evolves faster than we can even keep up with. So, in order for a security practitioner to remain sharp and focused on what they do and try to stay ahead of the bad guy, you have to constantly sharpen your blade, and that's largely what ASIS International does. One thing that I want to point out about not just ASIS, but all these societies for professions, they have certification programs. And you mentioned in your introduction to me that I'm a director on the Professional Certification Board. Professional certifications is extremely important component for someone to have in their toolkit. It's even more important for someone who's on active duty to have that force multiplier in their toolkit to show their civilian um, hiring managers that they have already been in tune with what's going on in the civilian world and they have achieved those professional certifications that their competition has already achieved. And I say competition, I don't use the term colleagues, I don't use the term counterparts. The civilians who are holding those positions out there are the competition, and they hold those certifications, they hold those job positions and opportunities that those military folks are trying to achieve. So I'm in the security profession. You mentioned that in the introduction. Um, but the same holds true for no matter what profession that service member or law enforcement professional is going to try to get into.
Yeah, we bring a wealth of experience, right, through our military service to the job market, and trying to decipher that and, capture that in a resume or in an interview can be difficult, translating it from military to civilian speak. And I think that's one of the big areas that the certifications gap for us is, saying, hey, look, I have enough experience that I was able to earn this certification and prove that I know what I'm doing in this area. So, great point there. Let's jump into Operation Career Change. So, what is this, and why should veterans participate in this thing?
Yeah, Shawn, you mentioned one key word right there just a few minutes ago, and that word was translation. I want to talk about that in just a second, but Operation Career Change is the name for a package. We'll call it a package. It's a package of free resources for military and law enforcement professionals to assist them in their career transition to a job in the civilian world, whether it's public or private. With the components of the package in Operation Career Change, there's three components. Excuse me, one is a career map. It's a visual depiction of what the service member or law enforcement officer's career looks like from day one to day whatever. Uh, Shows positions, ranks, training, all sorts of different components of that career progression. And underneath that, it shows a career progression of, call it an average or generic civilian security professional. And it shows what they're doing, what training, what education, what certifications, and what positions they're holding as they progress throughout their career. It gives a one solid look at what your competition is doing. Now, the key with that product is it doesn't necessarily mean that you look at the top and say, I'm a sergeant or I'm a captain or I'm a seaman or whatever, and scroll straight down and say, I should be a security manager, or I should be a security director or whatever. That's not what mapping does. Mapping is meant to show you what your competition is doing so that you're aware of it and you can do those key milestones along your path that your competition is doing so that when transition day comes, you are competitive for that. So that's the first product. Excuse me. The second product, and Shawn, you mentioned the word translation a few minutes ago. The second product is a translated statements of accomplishment product. And what I mean by that is on the left side, the left column of the product, it has real statements of accomplishment taken from evaluation reports, NCOERs, OERs, OPRs, award citations, things like that. 100% actual and factual, typos included, vernacular included. The only thing that was redacted is anything that would identify what unit or location. On the right side of that, right next to it, is a civilian translation of what that accomplishment is. It's written by it's written by the military folks who volunteered to build these products and edited by civilian hiring managers and HR professionals to ensure that the proper vernacular is used, the proper tense, as well as the STAR technique is included in all those. So that is a translated statements of accomplishment product. It's probably the most popular of the three. I prefer the first one. I think the first one is pretty dynamic, but the third product is similar to the second in that it is a translation of acronyms and verbiage. Acronyms and verbiage that are very common to us in the military, but do not translate or understand in the civilian world. If it weren't for Hollywood, civilians wouldn't even know what snafu and FUBAR means. The other 1,000 acronyms that we use as regular language don't translate well. So the document translates those. It's a reminder for military and law enforcement folks to not use those when they build their resumes, when they build their cover letters, when they build their introductory emails or messages on LinkedIn or elevator pitches and things like that. So those are the three products um, available in Operation Career Change. And the most important point about all of this is they're free. They're 100% free. When you go to the website, www.asisonline.org, You don't need to sign in. You don't need to be a member. You just toggle to the Operation Career Change landing page, and the resources are available for you.
That's fantastic. So you also mentioned certifications earlier. Um, the certifications through ASIS. Are there veteran scholarships or programs that veterans and maybe even family members can get into?
Yeah, great question. So ASIS has four professional certifications available. There are various scholarships. Um, I'll talk about the scholarships for ASIS members. And yes, there are active duty military from all branches and services across the world, active duty members of ASIS, as well as active law enforcement folks. There are scholarships available to those members who are active duty, National Guard, and Reserve who are members of ASIS. It's those scholarships are available through the ASIS Foundation, which is the 501(c)(3) component of ASIS International, which is a 501(c)(6). So those are the available scholarships, and they are full ride. They cover the entire application fee, testing fee, books, resources, the whole packet of it. If you're a non-member, if you're not a member of ASIS International, there are other scholarship opportunities out there. There are many veteran-friendly organizations who focus on scholarships and have them available. The other thing that folks tend to not think about is the COOL program. We think about college courses and stuff through the COOL program, but ASIS International's four certifications are all um, available through the COOL program. And that, and I just reviewed it yesterday to make sure it didn't change. That also covers exam fees, registration fees, books, study material, testing fees, and the COOL program covers recertification costs as well as continuing education units, which are required for any professional certification. So if you're in the military for several years into the future, the COOL program will continue to pay for your recertification and your continuing education associated with it. So COOL program has come quite a long way. It's very impressive.
That's I know that they're always changing, and some things are, funding's an issue sometimes and what have you. And but I know when I was in the service getting ready to transition out, I made took full benefit of all that. It's a huge resource that we often just leave on the table, and it's a shame that's how it goes. But well, that's fantastic to hear that there's a full veteran, you know, service member scholarship for members of ASIS.
Shawn, speaking of membership, so there's a growing population of members in ASIS who are active duty military and active law enforcement. And it's interesting because my last year in service, a friend of mine he had almost the exact same sort of career that I did. We were enlisted as a staff sergeant. We went through a commissioning program, came out officer the other side, and we retired as a major. We had almost identical career paths. And he was exactly 12 months ahead of me. And he called me, actually, he's told me in person and called me a week later to remind me as he was leaving Fort Bragg and going off to be a civilian. He said, "Don't forget, join ASIS International." And wouldn't you know, Shawn, I forgot. And I had to contact him about a year later and say, "Hey, what was that I was supposed to do?" And that's when I got engaged in it. People are learning from folks like him and folks like me and others who are trying to get the message out, and they're joining now. They're joining ASIS International now while they're on active duty so that they can get their certification easier. They have resources available, not just in the study material, but the people around them to help them, guide them through the process, help them study, give them pointers and things like that. The other thing that's extremely valuable and that I did not realize the importance of it or the power of it is the professional network that you can grow and gain through your involvement in a professional association. If you're looking to go be a teacher after your time in service, then it's time to get involved in the National Education Association today. If you're looking to go be a florist after the time in service, then it's time to go get involved in the whatever the florist profession association is. The time is now, because the network that you have while you're on active duty is not going to be valuable to you when you're competing in the civilian world. That network who's already in the civilian world, who's in the profession that you want to be in, is where your money is going to be made. That's the network you need to grow into. And there's really no better way than joining an association of like-minded individuals who are already in the place that you're trying to get to.
Well, you've heard us say it before. You just heard Eric say it, the importance of networking, building your network, especially in the career field you want to go into. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us today on VET S.O.S. And on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S. family, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. You can find VET S.O.S. podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and all social media platforms. Make sure to subscribe and follow. If you liked what you saw today, please reach out to them. Also, share this with a friend. Share this with somebody who you think wants to be involved in ASIS or is in the security field and may benefit from this kind of information. And as always, remember, don't drown and see a transition. Grab the VET S.O.S. Lifeline.